Hello, I am Rosana Jatobá. It's very good to have you here with us at our festival Nova Clubinha em Casa. The significance of collaboration and knowledge sharing for innovation is the topic of our next presentation. Our guest is the Managing Director of IXL Center, one of the top growth and innovation consulting companies according to Forbes magazine. He's also the President of the Growth and Innovation Program of Health International Business School. Let us hear Dr. Hitendra Patel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hitendra Patel. I am a Managing Director of the IXL Center and the Director of the Global Innovation Management Institute. I'm going to talk about innovation communities, ecosystems as a basis for creating bigger, better, bolder, faster, and cheaper innovations. The key message on innovation ecosystems is very simple. Those who go at it alone will be too slow or take too much risk or cost. Those who partner are going to be able to go faster. Those who believe in ecosystems will be able to do bigger, bolder, better, faster, and cheaper innovations. And the last key message, if you were to stop listening at this moment, is competition is not between companies. Competition is between ecosystems. Your ecosystem versus another company. Those are the things I'm going to be sharing with you for the next 15 minutes. I hope you guys will enjoy this conversation and hopefully you'll get some ideas and begin the journey that you don't play innovation alone, but you play with a team. And you don't play just with a team, you play with the ecosystem, and it's your ecosystem against everybody else. So the first point is those who go at it alone often are too slow. They spend too much time, money, or even take too much risk. If you go at it alone, you need to do everything by yourself. Not easy. You need to learn new things that others might have learned already. You got to make more mistakes because the only way to learn new things is by doing. And by doing, you'll find some things that you did don't work. And in other cases, they do work. And ultimately, you've got to buy all those assets. Going at it alone is expensive. Going at it alone is slow. Going at it alone increases the risk. It is for this reason that people begin to talk about innovation ecosystems. The more we do it with partners and other people, the more confidence you have that you can start and finish something. The more support you get from each other as they help you do things that you don't know how to do. And ultimately, you can go faster. You can actually reduce risk and you can lower your cost. So this is a no-brainer. It's absolutely a no-brainer as to why innovation ecosystems are the next big thing when it comes down to creating bigger, better, bolder innovations. A good innovation ecosystem, and I want to separate that from the word ecosystem, has got a range of elements, benefits that drives the innovation forward. Some of them are tangible, some of them are intangible. An innovation ecosystem is composed of what? Universities. They provide the talent. Startups, new ideas who are not held together by all the bureaucracy of big companies. Governments, as they create direction and facilitate movement of ideas. Financial institutions, as they provide funding. Accelerators, who help you create better processes and systems to drive ideas forward. Institutes of collaboration, and many others. Now, how do they actually collaborate with each other? They either exchange intelligence, insights, and ideas. That's what we're doing today. This very ecosystem we are in with Clubin. As we bring all the ecosystem of Clubin together, we're exchanging ideas, intelligence, and insights. Similarly, you could go further, exchange patents, prototypes, and even products. And that can facilitate innovation and make it go faster. But you can even go further than that. You can exchange talent, people in your organization with other people, assets, physical assets, your trucks, your factories, and even technologies with each other. And you can go even further than that, where you can actually collaborate on projects together, programs together, and ultimately partnerships. These are the tangible and intangible elements of an ecosystem. And a vibrant ecosystem is one which is exchanging all these different things quickly, efficiently, with high degree of trust, combining all the players together such that your ecosystem now competes with the ecosystem of somebody else's. Question for you guys is, how much of this are you really doing? How much of this are you leaving to chance, to luck? You may ask, if we do this, what can we expect from it? It's very simple. If you are able to activate your innovation ecosystem, you're able to organize it, you should be able to build bigger, bolder, better, faster, and cheaper innovations. What does that mean? Bigger, bolder, better, faster, and cheaper. When we talk about bigger, what it means is because you can access more resources of the whole ecosystem together, you can work on bigger challenges. They put a man on the moon. It was not just one group of people. They built the whole ecosystem of NASA. And that NASA ecosystem put together 400,000 people working together, using their resources, their factories, the intelligence to put a man on the moon. Bigger stuff, bigger challenges. You can do bolder things because you can have more access to insights. The insights of what is not bold versus what is bold. The access to those insights from your partners to drive bolder challenges. Insights is a big part of an ecosystem. You can do better solutions, because now you can actually compare them to your competitors. Your competitors and your customers can talk about these things, better solutions. Faster is just alignment. When you align yourself on the value chain with your stakeholders, now you all know what you're trying to do. You work together and you drive things from idea to commercialization. The customers at the end know what you're going to get. The suppliers on the other side know what you're going to put together, and all of it comes together for higher speed and ultimately cheaper. Cheaper because you don't have to make mistakes. Many of your partners in your ecosystem already know what to do and what not to do. Why should you try things alone? So it gets cheaper. It's a low-cost approach to getting innovation done. So these are the benefits of an innovation ecosystem. It's the exchange of ideas, patterns, partners, programs, and everything else. But because of the ecosystem, you can do it at scale, much bigger, much bolder, much better, much faster, and cheaper. And so the question again is, why don't more people do this? Let's talk about some examples, because competition is not about your organization with somebody else, but it's your ecosystem with another one. And let's give examples of ecosystems so you guys can bring it to life. In the airline industry, you've got the ecosystem of One World, American Airlines, and all the ecosystem of airlines which connect together. The Sky Team from Delta and their partners of airlines around the world and Star Alliances. And you guys already know when you travel, certainly you lock into one of those alliances, one of those ecosystems. And that ecosystem gives you access to travel and you're locked in. Ecosystems are powerful. That's what they knew in the airline industry, and they build partnerships amongst other airlines to build that ecosystem. That's an ecosystem of higher power, competing ones against the other. Competition is not between companies. In the case of Silicon Valley and Boston, we compete with each other. Silicon Valley believes they are the best in the world in terms of startups. Boston says we are the best in the world. Each one of us are beautiful cities, and we fight for talent. We fight for ideas. We fight for startups. We try and keep our startups in our own cities. Our ecosystem versus Silicon Valley. If all our companies move to Silicon Valley, Boston will die. There's competition. So we got to make sure our ecosystem in Boston is better than the ecosystem in Silicon Valley. Similarly, if you look at the iOS community, the Apple community, and then there's the Android community. Each one is fighting the other. iOS, Macs, Apples, iPhones, Android, Google, Samsung, and all those guys come together and they fight each other. One ecosystem against another ecosystem. And one will win over time. And more recently, even Bitcoin has entered this thing called our ecosystem versus the gold ecosystem. And they're basically both trying to compete for being the currency of choice, currency of stability. And each one has created their own stock market. They're all trading agencies, their own rules. Ecosystems compete with each other. The question for you is, which ecosystem are you in as a company? Do you know who your partners are? You guys meet together regularly to set the directions of what you want to do, where you want to go, how you're going to work with each other, increase the efficiency of communication and trust. Ecosystems help you go faster. When we look at the whole ecosystem for driving innovation, there are many players in there, from the public sector, entrepreneurs, academia, private sector, finance, and all of them have to work together and interact with each other easily. But unfortunately, most ecosystems are not efficient, and wherever there's an interface, there's a little bit of friction. Our lawyers get in the way, so you can't talk to those people without me talking. Your seniority defines who you can talk to, and it begins to be hard to talk to each other beyond the boundaries of your own company. But if our ecosystem is to work effectively and efficiently, we need to make sure that those boundaries are seamless. I want to give you a couple of examples of innovation ecosystems which are working really well. There's a company called Innovation Without Borders. They are an institute of collaboration. What they've done is they've done partnerships with all the startups which are in Israel. And those Israeli startups have no chance of ever becoming big companies if they're going to remain in Israel. Israel is a very small country. So Innovation Without Borders has made partnerships with all the embassies which are in Israel, from Europe, the US, South America, and basically says, would you like these companies to come to your country? Would they not be successful where you are? And by building this ecosystem of embassies with startups, they've created a vehicle to accelerate ideas from Israel into any part of the world through this very interesting and different ecosystem. Verizon. Verizon is a great story. Verizon is one of our biggest telecommunication companies here in Boston, and they basically build the infrastructure for all the telecommunication that goes on. Even the communication that we're doing right now is partly being on the backbone of Verizon. When they did 3G, they said, we're going to make a lot of money, as they invested in putting 3G lines everywhere. Unfortunately, the guys who made all the money in 3G was Facebook. When it came to 4G, they said, this time we're going to make a lot of money. And they're basically thinking about how to make money from that. And the guys who made all the money was Netflix. And then they said 5G is coming, and this time we're going to make money from it. And so they built an ecosystem of application developers, all using tools from Verizon around 5G applications. And as a result, taking a piece of all the profit, these companies who are making applications on 5G will have to pay Verizon. Not different than how Apple did it on the Apple iOS with the App Store. Hong Kong Science Park, Technology Park is another ecosystem. They basically put together all the companies and startups which Hong Kong says are important. Hong Kong decides that in the future it wants to be in biotech and fintech. So it basically says we'll find all the companies which are in fintech and biotech, put them together, and then we'll provide them support for their acceleration into what we need to do. Where is your startup community for pulp and paper? Where is your startup community for healthcare and beauty? You need those communities and clusters. Hong Kong Science Park is actually driving that in Hong Kong. In Bogota, the government of Bogota is driving SME growth. They say, let's help the small, medium-sized enterprises. But the way they're driving acceleration of that growth of small, medium-sized enterprises is going to the big companies like Klabin, like Natura, like Braskem, and saying, you guys have 100 suppliers, 1,000 suppliers. Well, why don't you get your suppliers to think about what their innovation plan is? And don't tell us what you're going to give us this year, but tell us what you're going to give us next year and the next 2 or 3 years. And by driving the ecosystem, the SMEs will also grow, and they make the parent company even more successful, building the ecosystem of your suppliers. There are many other types of ecosystems. Here in Boston, we have this thing called ICON. ICON is the innovation centers of New York, of New England. And what do we have? We have MIT over here. MIT is a very big organization, institution of higher learning. They put $2 billion in place for artificial intelligence, AI. And so every single innovation center around the world said, we need to be there. So Braskem puts the innovation center here. IBM puts the innovation center here. Schneider Electric puts the innovation center here. Shell, Verizon, over 80 companies show up just to be close to MIT, just to get close to the AI. And what they find is MIT doesn't have the time for everybody. MIT has time for maybe 2 or 3 companies. So all these other centers are all around where I am right now. If I look in any direction, there's a center of excellence. But they're saying, now what do we do? And we created an ecosystem for them to work together. Said, instead of talking to the MIT guys, why don't you guys talk to each other? Within each one of your centers of excellence, there are more PhDs, more scientists, more engineers than all of MIT if you put them together. And now you ask each other to solve problems, ask each other to help each other on whatever you want to do and work together. And a different ecosystem emerged called ICON, Innovation Centers of New England, where all these guys came for one reason, but in the end, they begin to collaborate with each other to be able to go faster, quicker, solving scientific problems, engineering problems that your own company cannot solve, but the other companies might be able to. In the Apple iOS system versus the Android system, which I mentioned earlier on, Apple has been very close and has grown its ecosystem to almost $160 billion or greater of all this new products which are on the Apple system. But on the other side, you got the Android GDP system, which is different, much smaller in revenue, much smaller in size, but much more stable because the partners Android has far more than the partners that Apple does. One is richer, one is much bigger. We don't know which one will win, but as a result of the fact that they're different, they compete in a different way. I want to share the story of LG, Samsung. In about 2004, I got the chance to work in Korea. And here, the Japanese were the leaders of flat panel TVs. There were 3 types: LCD displays, rear projection displays, and everything else. The gray line was a semiconductor roadmap that the Japanese put together. And so this is the roadmap of how we're going to go from generation 3 screens to generation 4 screens to generation 5 screens, getting bigger and bigger screens. Each screen size meant a factory investment in the $1 billion to $8 billion by the time they got to generation 6. So they needed a roadmap to make sure all the suppliers and all the producers of televisions all knew what was going to happen. And they could work together. Sony, Sanyo, Toshiba. Samsung and LG got together with the Korean government and says, what is that semiconductor roadmap, the ecosystem of Japan? And they says, what we need to do is beat that roadmap by a couple of years every time, and we should be able to beat the Japanese. Generation 3 comes almost 2 years earlier because of Samsung. Generation 4 comes almost a year and a half earlier because of LG. And at every single part of the roadmap of the Japanese roadmap, the Koreans pull forward their ecosystem to invent and develop LCD displays faster. At the end, by 2006, the Koreans were dominating the space of LCDs. And that's how it was done. One ecosystem, Korean, competing with the Japanese ecosystem. So what does it take to build a good ecosystem? Not easy. What we want to do is build trust. Trust within your group of companies versus others. You need leadership. Within your ecosystem, you do need somebody to step up and say, I will lead this ecosystem. You need members. Members are willing to participate. They'll ask you, why should we participate? Give them a reason. You need an approach that is low burden, high impact. Something that doesn't cost a lot, doesn't make a big effort, but easy to participate in and get some results from it. You'll need a mindset that is one of the hardest ones to break. With your very success, you'll begin to believe that you can do anything. You need a not invented here mindset, and you need a collaboration mindset and a win-win-win mindset. This is not easy to do for most companies. And this is hard. Ultimately, discipline, you got to create urgency. The Koreans create urgency of saying, let's do everything faster. You can't leave everything for tomorrow. Whatever you can do tomorrow, do today. Whatever you can do today, do now. And then ultimately, all of this comes out to trust. Do I trust you? Do I want to work with you? Do I like you? And trust is a big thing. But if you can solve those success factors, you're on your way to building an innovation ecosystem. It is with that, I want to leave my best words for you now. Innovation ecosystems are critical for the future of your company. Companies who can build ecosystems are the ones who are going to win in the future. And those who win in the future will have achieved the following things. They've taken a leadership role in the ecosystem. They were able to attract members to that ecosystem. They provided some sort of simple approach that was low burden. They had a mindset of collaborating and win-win-win. And ultimately, it was discipline that always gets you to the finish line. With that, go out there, go build an innovation ecosystem, build it so that you develop high trust and start enjoying the speed of innovation. Go do bigger, better, bolder, and faster, and of course, cheaper innovations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patel.
He was amazing, wasn't he? If you liked it, stay connected. I will see you shortly for one more inspiring conversation with the expert guests of Festival Inova Clubbing. See you soon.